Hello everyone, I'm Anju Chamantha, a senior software engineer at WSO2. With CMS Interoperability and Prior Authorization Final Rule, also known as CMS 0057F, CMS has required all the affected payers to publish patient access API metrics annually. With this video, let's discuss how we can achieve the CMS requirement using WSO2 Accelerator for healthcare. Let's go through a quick overview of the requirement. First of all, what is Patient Access API? Patient Access API is an API introduced under CMS 9115F, which is the CMS Interoperability and Patient Access Final Rule that allows patients to securely access their health information as held by their health plan, including claims, encounters, clinical data, and coverage via third party applications of their choice. CMS 0057F, which is built upon CMS 9115F, requires payers to include prior authorization information also in the Patient Access API. For more information on the Patient Access API and what WSO2 provides, please check out the video CMS Interoperability Seamless Access to Patient Data. Patient Access API Metrics. With CMS 0057F, CMS require impacted payers to report metrics to CMS on an annual basis about how patients use the Patient Access API. There are two main metrics required by CMS. One, the total number of unique patients whose data are transferred via the Patient Access API to a health app designated by the patient. 2. The total number of unique patients whose data are transferred more than once via the Patient Access API to a health app designated by the patient. Let's have a look at the WSO2 Healthcare Accelerator analytics solution. WSO2 Healthcare Accelerator comes with an inbuilt customizable response interceptor which can intercept outgoing responses and publish logs to a configured analytics server like OpenSearch. Logs then can be analyzed and aggregated in real time and visualized in a dashboard like OpenSearch dashboard. Not only for patient access APIs, this solution can be customizable to analyze any API which uses WSO2 Healthcare Fire Server. This walkthrough outlines the process of retrieving patient access metrics by leveraging the capabilities of the WSO2 Accelerator in combination with OpenSearch. Here is a quick guide on setting up analytics for patient access API metrics. Check out the video description for the WSO2 Healthcare Accelerator open source repos where you can find all the sample config files, readmes, and other useful resources. First, configure and install OpenSearch and OpenSearch dashboards. You can use the provided sample Docker Compose YAML to quickly set up both. Upon successful server startup, import the provided sample dashboard, which is an ND.json file, to OpenSearch dashboards. If you need more information like current insurance plan or contract of the patient to be published, you can deploy an API to fetch those and configure them also in the config.toml. Next, we need to add the configurations in the patient access API to enable analytics. Create a config.toml file and add the configs as in the sample config file. There are few identity server and gateway configurations to do in order to fetch patient and client information of the requests. In identity server, we need to add the required user attributes like user ID in the access token. In the gateway, a JWT should be created with the relevant values taken from the access token and sent as a header named XJWT assertion to the backend. Here is a high-level overview of the design. A request by a patient to access his or her data goes through the WSO2 Fire R4 service, which is then intercepted with Analytics Response Interceptor upon response dispatch. The required metadata such as patient ID, client ID, access resource, and status code are then forwarded asynchronously to a configured analytics server like OpenSearch for analytics processing. We can then view the metrics in the configured OpenSearch dashboard in near real time. Let's look into a quick demonstration. In this demonstration, we'll deploy OpenSearch and OpenSearch dashboard, configure analytics in Patient Access API in both local and Choreo environments, log into a client app which uses Patient Access APIs, and then visualize analytics in the dashboard. You can check out our open source repos for all the resources needed for this setup, including the sample config files and readmes. Links in the description. So, we have this analytics response interceptor inside the Fire server repo, and this readme contains general information about the interceptor and how to configure it. Also, we have a reference implementation for CMS 0057F, which contains many CMS API implementations, including Patient Access API. We can easily enable analytics for this by referring to the resources inside. This README contains how to set up OpenSearch and OpenSearch dashboards, configure analytics, and deploy the Patient Access API. First, let's deploy OpenSearch and OpenSearch dashboard. This is the reference implementation repo. We have provided a sample Docker Compose YAML file to deploy OpenSearch and OpenSearch dashboards. You also need to have a .env file in the same directory with the initial admin password for OpenSearch. I have already started OpenSearch and OpenSearch dashboards using Docker Compose up command. We have provided a sample OpenSearch dashboard with this ndjson file, which you can import to OpenSearch dashboard. The default index is set to patient access, which is used to organize the logs published. I'm changing it to patient access v8 because I already have dashboards for lower versions. So now we can visit the OpenSearch dashboard in port 5601 and import the ndjson file as an object. Go to manage, saved objects, and then import. Now we can see that the dashboard is successfully created. We can see the total number of patients who access Patient Access API and the total number of patients who access more than once, which are required by CMS 0057F. Now let's look at the configurations needed. If we are deploying the Patient Access API locally, we need to create a config.toml file in the same level as ballerina.toml. There is a sample config file provided in the resource directory to enable analytics. First, set enable analytics to true. Then we need to add a list of attributes to publish. These attributes are fetched from the xjwt assertion header value coming in the request, which is a jwt. This is a header constructed in the gateway using the attributes coming in the access token. I'll show in a bit how we can do this with WSO2 Choreo and Asgardio. Next, we need to add the URL, username and password for OpenSearch. Please note that OpenSearch requires logs published through the APIs in this format, meaning this is published as a document categorized under the index Patient Access v8. Then we can configure an optional MoInfo endpoint to fetch more information about the patient. For this demo, I have deployed this API locally to return the health plan and the contract of a given patient. An OpenAPI Swagger is available in the Fire server repository on how the MoInfo API should be implemented. Okay, now we have enabled analytics for the Patient Access API. Let's run this. You can start the service with bell run command, which deploy the Patient Access APIs. Now let's have a look at how to do this in Choreo, which is very simple and straightforward. In Choreo, you can deploy this reference Patient Access API as a normal Ballerina project. Here I already have this deployed. To enable analytics and add the configurations, go to configure and deploy, where you can add all the configs related to this service. Find the analytics config section and add the configs we discussed before. For this demonstration, I have exposed my local OpenSearch and MoInfo API ports to the internet with a proxy tool, and I use those in the configuration. In the next step, we need to enable the parse end-user attributes upstream setting so that Choreo Gateway creates the XJWT assertion header using the access token attributes of the logged in user. Do this to all the endpoints deployed. If you are using Asgardio as your identity provider, you can set the required access token attributes inside the application protocol section. For this demonstration, I have added Fire User, which is an identifier for the patient. Now, let's mock a patient who is logging into a payer application to check his data. We have implemented the sample app named Mediclaim, which we can connect to any Fire server. Let's connect it to the sample Fire server deployed in Choreo. Now, I am logging in with a patient named John. After successful login, it fetches his data from the patient access APIs. Now, let's check the dashboard. We can see we have one record for the patient resource. Let's fetch prior authorization data in Mediclaim app. Let's check the dashboard. Now we have a new record and the counts are also updated. Now let's log in with a separate user and check. As expected, the total number of patients is updated to 2, and the number of patients with more than one request stays the same. You can add any filtration or customization as you need in the dashboard. That is pretty much it for the demonstration. You can see how it is easy to comply with CMS regulations in WSO2 Healthcare Accelerator. Please check out the video description for more details. Cheers!